Dead Tired is a book by Ravensdagger, the same author who put out Stray Cat Strut, which I also stepped on into before deciding to jump on over to Dead Tired because the pitch was just too appealing for me. Now, what exactly is the pitch for Dead Tired? Well, it is LitRPG, the genre that is just taking the fantasy sci-fi space by storm, it seems right now, as it breaks into the mainstream, and it's doing a little bit of a different approach. Typically in LitRPG stories, you follow a character who starts at a lower level and begins to climb the ranks. If you're a little unclear exactly what LitRPG is, totally fair. It's still kind of a new thing. Basically, it means taking the magic system or just the full system of leveling up within a fantasy story and applying a gamified video game type aspect to it, where the character is able to see their stats and knowingly upgrade them to varying degrees of being like straight up video game or not. For example, Dungeon Crawler Carl, another series we've talked about here a lot, is very video game-esque to the point where people try and like game the stats to find loopholes because the system is actually built into a reality show. But that is not always the case. For example, here in Better Dead, the system is treated as something that's just like a law of reality. It isn't addressed as if it's a video game, and instead it's just everyone is used to the system existing until it doesn't. And that is one of the main mysteries that is the driving thrust through Dead Tired, where we are following someone who, again, contradictory to most lit RPGs, at least I've experienced so far, is starting the story at literally max level. Like the opening of the book, I'm not spoiling anything here, is them being like, I am as powerful as you can be, to the point where they are a character who has killed a pantheon of gods, fought and beat death. And so they decide to just take a nap. And they wake up far into the future, expecting to find humanity and society progressing to a point where we've conquered the stars, but instead things seem to have regressed, and that system that they maxed out is kind of broken. That seems like an already tantalizing pitch to me, but what really drew me towards it is our main character is not exactly a good guy. No, it's not a God of War situation where they killed a pantheon of gods and you're like, yeah, and instead it's like, oh, this is someone who just sought endless knowledge and power to a near sociopathic degree, and they conquered the world through hordes of undead. Yes, they have a necromantic bend to them. Ooh, you feel that flavor coming in? Welcome to Flavor Lit RPG Town. That didn't work. So yes, Dead Tired follows a mad necromantic inclined master of magic, mass murderer named Harold, who's here to train a little girl to be his personal child soldier with his cross-dressing butler named Alex. It's a weird one, and one I enjoyed. Not cross-dressing, the butler remains ambiguous, but you may have wondered, where is the little girl angle coming in here? There's an appeal to lit RPG that having a character starting at max level would be absent, right? One of the big appeals of this genre is watching a character climb the ranks. Well, after he wakes up, he quickly takes on Harold. Our main character doesn't call Fin Fang his apprentice, but let's call her his apprentice. And this is going to be where my first criticism of the series comes into play. Fin Fang is supposed to be 18. The problem, though, is she's written and voice acted in the audiobook to come across more like a juvenile 12. It's actually, like, bad.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Super Nintendo Chalmers. I'm learning.
I would say this is one of the worst writings of an 18-year-old I've come across in quite some time. There could be a reason for this unveiled in book 2, but it's severe enough that I'm now looking for that answer. It does not feel as mature as even the kids from it. It feels substantially younger than that. And again, this is someone who is supposed to be 18. Though they have a dog named Fang. Yes, Fin Fang has a dog named Fang. Fang doesn't get enough of the spotlight in my opinion, but they're nice to have around. I use words there that are going to get some attention, so I need to explain. Yes, Fin Fang is treated as Harold, our protagonist's child soldier, to the point where he has her beat someone to death with a book. And with how she's written, I know supposed to be 18, but comes across way more screwed up because it's like, oh, this is someone with the mental capacity of a child being made to beat someone to death with a book.
Stop! He's already dead.
Which raises the question, is Harold evil? Which actually takes me back to talking about Alex, the butler. Alex is wonderful. Probably the second best character in the entire story, second only to Harold. And Alex has this whimsical, insightful, oversimplistic view of things that endears them to you immediately. And how Alex comes into existence is with when Harold is woken up from their slumber, they immediately kill the person who accidentally woke them, but then wants to revive them to be able to learn about the world they're waking up into. And so they do, while combining them with another animal they come across, and then we get their butler. And they dress up as a maid.
And I will say the words bone daddy come out of their mouth about 20 times too many, but I'll let you figure that one out for yourself.
The weirdest part of this whole book, though, by far, was when they just started describing perfectly cubular rooms, and they kept calling them Squarespaces. That's right, today's video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to help educate and encourage entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're starting off or managing a growing brand, Squarespace is here to help you stand out from the crowd, create a beautiful website, and engage with that audience of yours. Just get a little engagement with them going. As you tickle on them. And through Squarespace, you can sell anything from products to content to time itself. But the edge is given with the amount of features they put at your fingertips. Their asset library allows you to upload, organize, and access all of your content in one place, as well as manage all of your files from one central hub and use them across the entire Squarespace platform. And if you don't have a background in coding, like myself, the flexible web templates allow you to just cruise through getting your website all laid out, which of course will automatically adjust to fit on every single device, which when I was a coder was such a problem, and the fact that it's just gone now, I feel old. But my favorite part is Squarespace's Fluid Engine. You just drag and drop things both on desktop or mobile, and you can unlock your creativity when it comes to getting your website together. From blogs, email campaigns, appointment scheduling, gated member areas, and more, they've got everything you need to get going. So head on over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to make your first purchase of a website or domain, go to www.squarespace.com/Daniel Green for 10% off your first purchase. Now go get your business up and running today! And this character, believe it or not, has one of the best action sequences I've come across this year. It is recounted at one point, and I'm calling it the Mass Market Maid Massacre. It's stupendous. Truly feels like something out of an Edgar Wright film, and is what solidified them as being my second favorite character, easily. And the tone of Dead Tired, if you kind of are getting what I'm putting down, is it's kind of like an anti-hero's journey. We're seeing someone who does not need to get stronger, but instead is as strong as they need to be. And instead of having a wise companion who's training them, is instead training them. All while having the moral compass of someone who's like, I didn't start the violence,
but I'll finish it.
This hurts! Nothing to see here!
And a lot of Harold's motivation does come from just being a black hole of knowledge. But with as much as I liked Alex's character and still managed to found bits to enjoy with Fin Fang, there was a inconsistency of character here that bothered me at times, and you can especially chalk up Harold's inconsistency with just him being mad, but combined with the problems from Fin Fang and just no exemplary character standing out on the level of like a Hadrian Marlowe that I'm totally in love with, characterization seems to be Dead Tired's biggest weak spot, not in terms of a lack of personality. Personality is here for sure, but there's just not too much development or consistency. And that inconsistency can undercut the narrative at times with Harold, who can come across like a complete psychopath, willing to murder so many, but then they do a 180 turn and come across like a complete sweetheart. And if it was refined and polished a bit, I feel like it could have played into the mad angle more effectively, but as it is, just doesn't quite succeed in getting there. The actual plot, though, of Dead Tired kind of develops strangely naturally throughout the narrative. I found myself at multiple points wondering, like, what are we doing here? What's gonna happen next? Because we even have Harold at times being like, I'm just gonna go back to sleep soon. But then mysteries arise. And of course, the fact that the system is broken continues to intrigue Harold, beyond the fact that there's actually just another magic system in place called cultivation that's kind of against the one he's used to, that he wants to explore and learn about. Because as I said, he's a black hole of knowledge. He wants to learn everything. And that is when we get guided to the new pantheon of gods. And this is one of my favorite angles of Dead Tired altogether, because it is risky as an author to take on a main character who is kind of just at the peak of power. Everyone fears them. There's not really many ways for them to rise higher. This is where Dead Tired succeeds at its strongest, because there is this aura that bleeds off of Harold, where they're meeting new powerful gods, new minor gods, and all of them are treated essentially like children. And under a different tone, under less a satirical lens, and with less of a commitment to just who this character is, this part of the book could fall flat in his face, but instead is a source of not only tremendous comedy, but a bit of threat, a bit of terror that comes off from Harold himself. In the absence of the ancient gods that Harold took out thousands of years ago, of course, the power voids have been filled by gods who have not proven themselves as much. And Harold's existence itself has been reduced to this legend of this individual who is able to just take out everyone else who posed any threat. And so when word begins to spread that Harold is here, that's when I really started to have fun with it. Because not only is he just so much higher, but with the system been broken for so long, there's an allegory used that I think was intentionally put in there that can be applied beyond just the context it is within the book, and that is a man who can see among the blind, which Harold really comes across as. And this is hammered home even more so when he does have kind of a more peaceful sit down with some of these newer gods, because he's not just all about the violence, wanting to kill everyone right, left, and center. And it turns out that a lot of their power has been, I won't spoil exactly what, but being fed from something that Harold made. It's just something where he's like, oh yeah, I remember making that. It's not the best thing I've ever made. And they're like, I'm sorry, fucking what? And so the themes of this book are kind of pulled into an extreme. And I know some people will kind of turn their nose up at reading any depth into LitRPG, and I think that is silly. All literature deserves to be looked over with a magnifying glass equally. And if people draw different things from stuff, fantastic. But I think it's fairly overt within Dead Tired that this is a book that wants to challenge divinity, but not in a way that then just like leaps on over to the other extreme, because we see flaws within Harold's way as well. He is just the extreme of logic and reason, an individual who is able to game the system to the point where they were able to literally kill gods. But the consequences of that have had tremendous impact, and the new gods are able to make points that he could be responsible for a lot of things that have gone wrong. A selfish desire for more, even if you're able to justify it with the most cold logic and reason, can end up being a drain on everything else around you. Just because you yourself are able to explain away all of your actions does not mean the consequences outside of your control are not your fault. Hence why we are challenging divinity through a character who has lost his marbles. That has multiple meanings if you've finished the book, and that's kind of going to be the final criticism I have here. There is a commitment to have Harold consistently laugh at lazy puns or plays on words, and at first it was kind of charming, then it began to get tiresome. And then the weakness of many and the stretching of these just kind of became too thin, to the point where it didn't even feel like the character was reaching, but instead it felt like the writer was reaching. And I was like, pull it back a little bit. Like, there's rules of threes. This went to like a rule of 30. Too much. And like, I got the point. It played. It paid off. But too many, too fast. Stop it. The final point I'll get into here is just the world itself. I'm not sure if this is true or just what I've happened to be exposed to when I've dabbled on into LitRPG, but there seems to be a general shotgun approach to world building within this genre, where it's just take a bunch of different elements from a ton of different fantasy or sci-fi stories and put them in here. We have everything from mechs to golems, undead, elven warriors, dwarves, cannons, guns powered by magic, all kinds of stuff just folded on in. And it can feel a bit messy and does make you raise questions about how this but not that, especially with all this time that's passed with Harold being here. The new magic system can explain away some of it, but also raises some more questions as well. And the commitment to undercutting so much of what's set up with humor, especially with world building, and displaying Harold's power, makes everything start feeling a bit paper thin. I say that though, while having a gut feeling that sequels will help flesh this out quite a bit and solidify a lot of the scaffolding that Dead Tired seems to be having kind of in a rickety state right now. Overall, I had a really good time with this one. I don't need everything to be Stormlight Archive or War of the Worlds. Sometimes I just want a good time. And Dead Tired is kind of chalking up into that. I can binge it in a weekend and I'll be raving about it for a few days after and have fond memories of it for years to come category. For me, this is going to be
a week to mid
7 out of 10 with a very solid recommendation for LitRPG fans who want to see that consistent climb the protagonist is going through kind of flipped on its head and instead start with someone who is literally max level and mad because of it. But this has just been my thoughts on Dead Tired. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, as well as your experience, your opinions on LitRPG. I think from here I might have like one more LitRPG in me before backing away from that subgenre a bit and getting a bit more into other wider fantasy genres that I kind of want to explore more. But it's been a really fun foray ever since my addiction to DCC to see what else has been going on. A lot of people have been telling me to check out He Who Fights Monsters, so I think that'll be my last LitRPG to step my toe into before doing a bit of a re-examination of Wandering Inn's rewrite. And in that time, I'll also be getting you Bobverse. Yeah, reading is kind of upticking on the channel again. If you're not already aware, a lot of booktubers get burnt out from reading because they just have to do more. And in my opinion, that's because they don't give themselves breaks. So I kind of try to do like 2 months on, 1 month off. It doesn't always work out that way, of like reading a whole lot and then taking a break. And that way I can kind of keep getting excited for stories like this. It never feels like a chore, and I can truly get that like fan passion perspective. Anyway, I'm just rambling at this point. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here. And have a good one, y'all. Goodbye, Shadow Daniel. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier patrons, James Weldon and Jason Astora.